Welcome to Page One, the show for writers with the reader in mind. Here's your host, Zita Christian.
Hi everyone, welcome to Page One. I'm Zita Christian. For tonight's subject, I invited a gentleman, a friend, a former guest to come back to the show. He's Peter Fox. He is a screenwriting instructor and he is the Vice President of Production at Tripeg Studios in Hamden. Peter, thanks for being on the show again.
Thanks. Great to see you again.
You know, we've been working for, I don't even want to think about how many months on this Bushnell Filmmakers Forum.
Yes.
And now it's right around the corner.
Yes, it is.
So I want the opportunity to talk to the audience about what's going to be covered in that Filmmakers Forum. But before we get to that, I need to let people know a little bit about the Bushnell that you might not know. I think one of the most important things that people aren't aware of is that the Bushnell is a 501c3 not-for-profit corporation. It really is. The other thing you should know is that while most people think of the Bushnell as, Broadway or symphony or dance, we have a long history of film. And we opened in January of 1930, and for, I forget the number of years, but just up until recently, we had the longest continuously running travel film series in the country. We had, who was it? Admiral Perry. We had him on the Bushnell stage himself talking about his experience at the North Pole. And we had a film, to talk about that. The ceiling of the Bushnell, well, you've been there a gazillion times. Did you ever look up? Did you see the picture of Al Jolson?
Yes.
He's right up there with a whole tribute to film as part of, the civilization and silent film. So and there are a lot of other examples, but the point is, it's not that film is new to us. It's just it's not something most people know. In fact, last fall, we did a whole conference called Boo at the Bushnell to explore the evolution of the horror genre in theater, film, and literature. And we screened, what was the name of that? The House of Usher.
House of Usher, yes.
With, what's his name?
Vincent
Price. Yes. How could I forget him? But what we're going to talk about now is this two-day event called the Bushnell Filmmakers Forum.
Right.
August 13th and 14th, Friday and Saturday. So Friday night we're starting off with a meet and greet.
Yes.
So
should be a lot of fun.
It really should. And I think sometimes people don't realize how important it is, even if it's not a very formal thing, even if it's just the opportunity to, look in the eye, shake the hand, hi, Alex Rose, hi, Martha Coolidge, hi, Ida Zanetti, I'm so-and-so, and, love your work.
Well, I think that, the event is highly unique in a couple of different ways. Since the tax incentive was passed here a few years ago, there's been, as you know, as we've discussed on the show before, a lot of activity, not only from independent filmmakers, but the majors are here now to make films. But having said that, there are quite a few people now in the state who are trying to get a foothold in the industry, which is a very, very difficult thing to do. It can take years sometimes of toil to get an agent to meet with you, years to get a producer to meet with you, hear your pitch, years to get in front of a director to hear your pitch. What we've managed to put together is an opportunity for people to come to the Bushnell and actually have the opportunity to have a face-to-face meeting to pitch their story idea to major players in the industry. And I just can't overemphasize how difficult that is to achieve if you don't have an opportunity like this. So that aside, there are also a lot of other great things that you can do on this weekend. You can screen one of their films. We're screening Ray, we're screening Norma Ray, and we're screening Rambling Rose by Martha Coolidge, who is from Hamden, by the way. And the opportunity to ask them about what choices were made during the production of the film after the screening of the film. There's going to be a great opportunity for questions and answers with the audience. There's going to be, as you said, a meet and greet Friday night, a cocktail reception, which is, again, a great opportunity. There's going to be a panel discussion. I think that's on the Saturday.
Saturday night. And that's on the business of making the film.
On the business of making the film, with, again, opportunities to interface with these major players in the industry. I didn't mention Howard and Karen Baldwin were going to be there, the producers of Ray. Yeah. So this is a very, very unique opportunity. Ida Zanetti from Paradigm.
Ida
an
Zanetti,
agent.
yeah. Paradigm Agency, very high power.
Very well. It's one of the top agencies for screenwriters, absolutely, and for people who work in the film industry. And Peter Miller, right out of New York. So this is a very rare moment, and we're really hoping that people start to pay attention and get themselves down to the Bushnell that weekend.
You know, Peter, though, there's one thing that I do need to mention. Now, you have to understand, Peter and I have been working on this for a long time. He's a professional. He teaches screenwriting workshops. I've taken his workshop. It's a 2-day workshop. I've taken it 3 times. And I learn something new every time. But I'm taking it as a novelist trying to learn similarities, differences, trying to learn new techniques to help me. But I want to emphasize, if you're, excuse me, listening and thinking, I'm nowhere near ready for something like that. I mean, we've got A-list people. You know, Alex Rose, who produced Norma Ray. That was an Oscar-winning film. Martha Coolidge, who directed Ramblin', no, not Ramblin' Rose.
Martha Coolidge directed.
Yeah, she
Ramblin'
did. She
Rose.
directed
Yes, she
Ramblin'
did.
Rose. Nominated for an Academy Award. In fact, that's the first and I think the only film that had mom and daughter, Diane Ladd and Laura Dern,
That's
both
right.
nominated for an Academy Award in the
That's
same
true.
film. Didn't win the Academy, but won lots and lots of other
Yes, it
awards.
did.
She directed that, as you mentioned, Connecticut native, Women's Hall of Fame. Howard and Karen Baldwin, producers of Ray, lots
Yes.
of other films. I mean, all 3 of these people, lots of films. And of course the agents. And so you're sitting there thinking, I'm not ready for that.
Well, I think this is where the weekend is very unique in the way that we've structured it. If you are someone that has worked for years and years to get an agent or to get before producer or director and haven't had the opportunity, that opportunity exists. If
This
you're
is
someone
golden.
who is not yet at that stage, but you want to make sure that you know how to jump into the pool, really get your first interface with the decision makers, this is a really golden opportunity to really gather as much information from these people who've achieved at the highest level and really plot your course. Or if you're someone who just loves film and
Yeah.
wants to learn about the process of how these films were made and how major films get made, and attend a workshop on how to pitch to Hollywood, or attend a workshop on the business of making the film, or attend a workshop on creating characters,
That's
which is
what I
something
want.
that is great if you're a novelist as well. There are very unique opportunities that exist within the structure of the Filmmakers Forum at the Bushnell. So I think it's, again, very unique, and not just for the more advanced, but also for someone who's either just a lover of film or even a beginner.
Although now I'm gonna throw a little something in here though, and that is that, in fact, we had George Norfleet on another show. He's the director of the Connecticut Office of
Right.
Film, Television, and Digital Media, and we were talking after the show about well, when do I come down to the office and start getting some help, and
Right.
he said, which I think applies to this situation as well, it's never too early
That's
to
right.
start. It's never too early.
That's right.
Especially if you have an opportunity to make a connection with
I think
somebody from Hollywood.
I think that people many times, especially when they come to the course for the first time, they'll have a great idea, something that is very marketable, something that is very potentially commercial, but they have no knowledge of what to do with it, where to go with it, how to nurture it. So again, this is an opportunity that people will have if someone has a great idea, but they don't know how to make
Yeah.
it happen. This is a really great first opportunity, a first contact opportunity.
I also wanted to talk a little bit about 2 of the people who are going to be screening films, Martha Coolidge, Alex Rose. I called Martha, and of course, I have to tell you, this is my job. My job. And I have these opportunities to talk to these people on the phone. If it weren't something that I needed to do, I probably would be so tongue-tied, I would have so many butterflies. But it's easy to to pick up the phone, say, Martha, I have to interview you for this article and get some information from you. We wound up having the best conversation. And I found out that, how sometimes you can have a conversation and something comes up that was never planned. It turned out she and I both lost a parent when we were very young. And that, being members of that same unfortunate club sort of opened up a door, and we immediately went into some deeper discussions, which I was so grateful for but had not planned. And she said to me, I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget, she said, I was 9 when my dad died. We moved to the shore. Everything changed. There were 5 of us kids. I was the oldest. Being the oldest is typical for a director. I found that fascinating. So then I asked her what was the effect, what effect did her father's death have on her profession? Not if it did, but what effect did it have? Because I know from my own experience, it does have an effect. And she said, I have the impulse to retell a story with meaning, to make something creative, something that gives meaning to events and struggles is extremely powerful in general, and certainly to someone who fears the chaos and pain of events that have no meaning. So that whole concept of a story with meaning. Peter, I know from your workshops you've talked about the importance of a story having meaning. What do you mean by that?
Well, many times people are driven to write a story or write a screenplay because of an event that has happened in their world or in their life, but they cannot make sense of it and they can't place it in a context where it makes sense. And I think if there's anything that I'm most thankful for that goes along with being an instructor of screenwriting is that I'm able to help people kind of find those answers through the structure of a cinematic document called a screenplay. Not everything that happens to you is going to make it onto the screen. So that's where the creativity comes in. And if you impose meaning on a screenplay, it usually doesn't work. But if you just take a great character, identify what the central conflict is, and identify a satisfying ending, that meaning usually speaks to you at the end of the process, as opposed to you imposing it. And I think that that's what filmmakers do. That's what drives filmmakers. It's always a series of answering questions, like why do these terrible tragedies happen to people? Why did her father suddenly die when she was young? Or it could be somebody who's lost somebody tragically through some sort of accident. And again, there's this quest for, well, what is the meaning of this? But by following a character and giving that character, assigning, first of all, an identity to the cinematic character, and assigning a central conflict to this character, the meaning will usually come to you at the end. And I know that sounds very obtuse and abstract, and it is. But if you look at any of the films that we're screening, if you look at Norma Ray, there's a very good example of that. She didn't ask for all of these things to happen. It's the choices that the character makes through the pain of the conflict that gives the story meaning, and how we watch the character change from the beginning, before the conflict is unfolded, to the condition of the character after the conflict has been, I guess, satisfied or solved or overcome. But this is the stuff of screenwriting, and this is the stuff of filmmaking. And you'll find that a lot of great directors have these types of events in their early years or in their
Something
teenage
that drives
years.
them. Yeah.
Something that's driven them to find a creative outlet and to find the meaning of it through cinema.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah. Now, you just mentioned Norma Ray, so let me jump for a minute here to Alex Rose, because I did speak with Alex also, had several wonderful conversations with her, and she's going to be doing a workshop on creating characters. So I asked her, well, give me a little preview here. When you are talking about creating characters, because she's teaching at Chapman University, and she said, and I jotted this down to make sure I would get it right, she said when she's creating characters, or not create, I asked her what is a meaningful character to her. So she said the character would be multifaceted. That makes sense. You don't want a cardboard character. Character has to be passionate about something. You can certainly see that in Norma Ray.
Yes.
Character must be driven, and that comes across really strong. And the character must be socially conscious, because that is what part of the appeal to Alex Rose, that she writes, that she produces shows about characters who are socially conscious. Well, all of that right there shows you the appeal of the movie Norma Ray.
Well, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I asked her also if producers like writers, gravitate to certain themes? Because I know writers do.
That's a
I can
Pandora's
tell you
box
that.
right there.
Yeah, well, I know.
There are some who do and some who don't.
Well,
and
they say they don't.
There's a huge debate in all of the, not only the trades, but all over regarding what's being produced in Hollywood right now, what kind of characters are being portrayed in these movies. And there are a lot of characters portrayed in these movies that are not socially conscious. And I think that American cinema right now is under a lot of fire for that. But I also see a trend that it's going to start going back the other way. Because I think that the movie-going public, as a result of what's happening in America right now, are rejecting these people who, not only in the movies but in their everyday life, that they're tired of people that are not socially conscious. Look at the Bernie Madoffs of the world, and people I guess, are becoming more hungry for, classic heroic characters once again.
Yeah, the heroic character, somebody who makes life better. I don't think that's a Pollyanna view.
No.
I think that's a socially responsible view. But, in fact, that reminds me of something that Martha Coolidge said. And we were talking about that, sort of that thumbprint of directors as well. And she said, all of my films, now she's done so many things. I mean, look at Lost in Yonkers, with the two boys and the mom has died and they're staying there with the grandmother, and this is what, 1940s. And that's not at all like, except that it's a period piece like Norma Ray, or like Rambling Rose, but like she also did The Prince and Me.
Yes.
I mean, a romantic comedy. She did Material Girls. I mean, there's so many different things that she's done. And within that whole gamut, all that, what appears to be all this variety, nothing the same at all, she said to me, no matter what film I do, whether it's a dark film, a light film, every one of my films is loving in nature. That there's something that's very positive and loving.
And that is her hallmark as a director.
That's her hallmark.
As every director has their hallmark.
Yeah.
Every director has their stamp. I'm sure Steven Spielberg, you could probably come up with 3 or 4 different characteristics that his lead characters embody. And you go right down the line. John Avildsen, same thing. Pick any director. Woody Allen, same thing.
Sure.
But there are certain directors will portray certain character archetypes. But hopefully there will be more films like this, and maybe we'll get away from some of these
I would hope so.
less responsible character archetypes that we're seeing.
Well, when I was talking with Alex Rose, I was asking her about her thumbprint and do producers, I mean, because we're talking about somebody who's putting the money behind a film to make it, assembling everything. Is there that thumbprint for her as well in terms of what do I want to make happen? Because there's a magic in saying I will assemble whatever is needed to make a movie happen, as well as obviously directing it once things have been assembled. And she said, most of my films are about American subculture. I like to take people into a subculture they might not be familiar with, subcultures fraught with scenes of hardship and obstacles. They serve as additional crucibles for our characters to grow into, in addition to the conflict of the story. So that got us into a conversation talking about the subculture of the southern mill town, which is the background for Norma Ray. Think about that. I just watched the movie again the other night. It's always been one of my favorites, but now for so many different reasons. Having taken your course many times, I am mindful of the importance of the opening image. So now I'm watching the opening image, and for people who haven't seen it or lately or at all, when the movie opens, we're seeing machines in a factory, and we're
Grinding
hearing
away.
the noise, and we're seeing the dust, and we're seeing the cotton, and we're seeing all these aspects of a cotton mill in the South, all the grungy, dirty, monotonous aspects of it.
The opening image is crucial, very, very critical, specifically for somebody who's writing a spec screenplay, a screenplay that is written on speculation that a major is going to buy it and turn it into a movie. You have to grab the reader/viewer from word 1, page 1, image 1. You have to that image has to grab the viewer by the collar, sit them down, and say, look at this. And that opening image is always very, very important, because that is bringing you into, of course, you're familiar with the ordinary world of the lead character, but that is from the Joseph Campbell work, The Hero's Journey, yes. But that opening image is usually an indicator of the ordinary world of the person that we're going to be following around for 2 hours or 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours, whatever the case might be. We usually cite the example of Rocky. It's the fight scene, the opening image of Jesus on the wall, and then you pull down and there's Rocky in the ring. We know the movie's about redemption at that point. But yes, the opening image is absolutely critical.
I want to just jump back to something you just said a moment ago, though, about films, writing a film on spec. And if I understood correctly, you said, you tell me again so I don't by chance get it
about
wrong.
The opening image?
No, what's a spec film?
Oh, a spec script.
A spec script.
A spec is just short for the word speculation. You're writing this not to shoot yourself, not to produce yourself, but you're writing this with the idea that you're going to get it into the hands of an agent or a producer or a director. You're writing it on the speculation that they're going to like it enough to make it into a film.
But you have to finish it. I mean, a spec script still is a finished script.
Well,
right?
yes, of course.
Well, I say that because I write novels.
Mm-hmm.
And for someone who is already published, like my agent can send out 3 chapters, the first 3 chapters and an outline. Mm-hmm. That is a spec for a novelist.
Yes, the context of
I'm missing
it's a different, yes,
different
it's a different
things.
It's a different context in the screen trade. A spec script, of course, is 120 pages usually, thereabouts, anywhere from 105 to 120, 125. But you don't send out the first act to a producer. You usually will send them the whole thing, and it is called a spec script. So you're not selling.
Okay.
You're not sending them the first act or the first 10 pages. No, you're not doing that.
Oh, okay. You have to.
Although
do the whole thing.
I've read screenplays when I worked in Hollywood, and sometimes even now when they mail me a couple to read, where the first 3 pages I'll say to myself, this is a winner. You just know when it's a winner. You just instantly know. So those first few pages and those first few images are very, very, very important, yes.
So I want to hang on to this just for one more minute here. I've been telling some of my friends who are novelists, come to the Filmmakers Forum, because, whether we admit it or not, we all want to see our book made into a movie.
Of course.
But not all books are, I don't even know what the right word
adaptable.
is. Yeah, adaptable to a movie. So what is the advantage for someone who is writing a novel to come to hear about screenwriting?
Well, you can save yourself a lot of anguish because the context of the writing is completely different. You'll hear you'll hear different arguments against what I've just said, but I think that generally the industry and the producers, I'm sure Alex would agree with what I'm saying, and the others would agree that the context of screenwriting is completely different because you're telling the story with a set of images, and those images are described on a page, and those pages are the pages of a screenplay. Mm-hmm. So the mindscape of the reader is completely different. The mindscape of the person reading it is a movie screen. I can't even say it, I keep saying mindscape. The mindscape of somebody who's reading a novel is here. So if I'm reading War and Peace, those pictures in my mind are going to look different than the pictures in your mind, because it's the mindscape of the reader. Whereas with the screenplay, it is the mindscape of the viewer. And it's a very different form and a very different style of writing. It's more direct, it's more visual. You use much more descriptive verbs, and it's just a completely different process. But the storytelling, is something that has to fit within the context of this 120-page document. So you can save yourself a lot of that toil of making that transition from novel writing to screenwriting by attending this.
Now, I have to tell you, based on the classes that I took with you a while back, Peter's been teaching me how to write what's called a beat sheet. And you have to have a beat sheet before you start writing your screenplay.
Yes.
So, and I've been working on that, and that's like, write down all these little steps of all the stuff that happens. Months, it's taken me months. But I have to tell you, I finished that, and I thought, and my agent called and said, okay, where's the rewrite on this novel? And I'm writing, I use the novel that's been being rejected all over the place. Love the concept, but something's wrong with it. So I'm doing the beat sheet, and now I can see what's wrong. I knocked out a whole new synopsis.
That's what it's for.
Did it in about an hour. I mean, this takes me a month.
It's much better to do it at that stage than it is in the draft stage, whereas you've got this map, this construction map, which is basically your beat sheet. We should explain what a beat is. A beat is basically 7 to 10 words. You try to keep it under a sentence. It is basically who, what, and what happens. They're units of dramatic action, and you have a list of these. When you're writing it for a film, when you're writing a beat sheet for a film, it's usually between 60, 80, maybe 90 of these. Okay, so when you're looking at your story, when you're looking at your screenplay in the beat sheet, you haven't yet gone to the draft, so if you need to make fixes, it's much easier to do it at this stage of the construction, this is where I was going, than it would be after you've completed your draft. Because now it's like trying to reach into a house of cards. Take that one card that's slightly off in the middle and move it around. The whole structure will fall down. But with a beat sheet, it's much easier.
I want to mention something else too here that we had talked about in your workshop, but it's going to come out very strong at the Bushnell Filmmakers Forum, and that is the idea of pitching. Now we have Zita Zanetti, who is an agent with Paradigm in Beverly Hills, and she is going to be talking about selling to Hollywood. And we have Peter Miller, who is the head of the PMA Lit Film company in New York City. He's going to be talking about the art of the pitch. And that gets into that whole thing about the log line and why that's important. And so you can, summarize your story really fast. And we only have about a minute left. So Peter, you tell me, what's a log line? Why is it important?
A log line, what the thing is in 25 words or less. A down-and-out club fighter from Philadelphia gets a chance at redemption when he's offered the opportunity to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world. That's Rocky.
Yep.
Okay, so you've got to grab them, sit them down. This is what it is.
But it doesn't say what happens at the end. It just says this is like the problem that's going to be explored in the film.
This is the person, this is the conflict, and away we go. That leads in your pitch. You always want to start out with the log line. There's an old story. It's not that old story actually. The movie Snakes on a Plane was sold on the log line. Snakes on a Plane, and basically, okay, let's hear about this, and off they went. So yes, log line, very important. 25 words or less. What the project is.
Well, Peter, this has been great. I mean, we could talk for another hour here about what's coming up, but let me just summarize. You can go to the website, www.bushnell.org. Mark your calendar, August 13th and 14th. This is a phenomenal opportunity, face-to-face contact with some serious Hollywood movie moguls, and a chance to, an optional, you don't have to pitch if you don't want to, but you can wind up pitching to a director, a producer, agent, literary manager, so much.
Yes, true.
So much.
Beginners, advanced. If you're somebody that's been worked, you can get your deal made.
And Peter, I'm getting the signal we are out of time. So let me just say thank you to everybody and everyone, and
Thanks
let me
for having me back.
You're very welcome. I just want to remind everyone the words of the fantasy writer Ursula Le Guin, who said there have been civilizations that did not use the wheel, but there have been no civilizations that did not tell stories. So find your story and find a way to tell it, and join us again next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Food for the crew and guests was provided by Manchester Grill of Manchester, Connecticut, and Angelo's Restaurant of Glastonbury, Connecticut. Be sure to send your writing questions and your comments on the book club selection to Zita at page 1, P.O. Box 1515, Manchester, Connecticut, 06045-1515, or send an email to Zita at page1tv.com.